If you're leading a global company right now, you're playing a high-stakes game where the rules change at every border. You secure a deal in New York, only for it to be unraveled in Brussels. You launch a product in Tokyo and face a completely set of hurdles in Sao Paulo. For decades, we've called this the cost of doing business, but we've been wrong. Groundbreaking new research from Moghimbag Celestin 2005 paper reveals that this isn't just operational inconvenience. It's a systematic self-reinforcement and failure that's quietly costing companies hundreds of millions. It's a machine designed to destroy value, and most companies are simply feeding into it. Today, I'm going to show you the 3 interlocking gears of this destructive machine, and I'm going to give you the exact strategic playbook to break it. This isn't just theory, but by the end of this next 20 minutes, you will have a framework to turn your greatest operational risks into your most durable competitive advantage. Let's open up the machine and look at the first and most powerful gear: jurisdictional chaos. Celestin's data paints a stark picture. The European Union, on average, blocks or requires significant remedies in 13% of major mergers. In the United States, that figure is just 5%. This inconsistency isn't a minor detail. It's the primary gear in the machine, creating immediate, bone-jarring friction for any cross-border move. Think about what this means. You can't have one global strategy. You need a EU strategy, a US strategy, a UK strategy post-Brexit, and an Asian strategy. A patchwork of conflicting priorities. Is your measure pro-competitive or is it monopolistic? The answer depends entirely on which side of the Atlantic your lawyers were standing. This chaos isn't just about antitrust, it's about data privacy, where the GDPR is a global factor and with wildly different interpretations. It's about environmental standards, labor laws, and digital service taxes. For example, a company like Lululemon isn't abstract. Imagine launching a new line of yoga mats with a proprietary recycled material. In the EU, you are battling strict green claim regulations. In California, it's Proposition 65. In Asia, it's a completely different set of material safety standards. One product, a dozen different legal battles before it even hits the shelf. Celestin identifies this as the foundational problem. It's not that regulations are bad, but it's that their fundamental incompatibility creates a system where certain things are impossible. This is the first gear. Jurisdictional chaos begins to grind down your speed, your resources, and your strategic clarity. And as it grinds, it directly activates the second gear. This chaos has a direct, quantifiable price tag. Celestin's research shows that the average compliance and regulatory cost for major cross-border deals has exploded from $15 million in 2020 to over $19 million in 2024. That's a 27% increase in just 4 years. This isn't just inflation. This is a direct cost of chaos. But to truly understand this, we must use the lens Celestin employs: transactional cost economics. In a perfect world, the cost of a deal is the price you pay. But in our world, the real cost is everything surrounding the deal: the lawyers, the consultants, the lobbies, the delays, the opportunity cost. Your top executives merge in regulatory battles instead of running the business. This is just pure value destruction. It's wealth that should be going to innovation, to shareholders and employees, being incinerated by the friction of the system. And these costs aren't just for mergers and acquisition. They are for every product launch, every market entry, every supply chain decision. You need a local legal team there, a specialist firm there, a battalion of internal compliance officers just to keep the light on. Think about Lululemon acquisition of Mirror. That was just the buying of a company. That wasn't just the buying of a company. It was buying a nightmare of new compliance. Suddenly, they had to navigate hardware safety issues in Europe, digital content licensing in Asia, and under the data privacy laws everywhere. That 19 million price tag, that's the real cost of their ambition. The second gear, soaring transaction costs, takes the friction from gear one to monetize it. It drains your treasury and slows your momentum. And as your resources thin, your infrastructure grows. You become exponentially more vulnerable to the third and final gear of the circle.
And the inevitable result? A 40% surge in international legal disputes from roughly 50 major cross-border cases annually to over 70. When the rules are unclear and the costs of missteps are catastrophic, litigation becomes the default language of business. Celestine explained this powerfully through institutional theory. Every country has its own institutional framework, its own set of formal rules, and just as importantly, its own unwritten norms. When a company fails to navigate the chasm between these different systems, conflict is not a possibility. It is a mathematical certainty. You signed a contract under US law, but your partner is in a jurisdiction that interprets good faith differently. You acquired a company based on one regulatory assumption, but a new government comes in and changes the rules. Lululemon's global franchise model is a breeding ground for this. A franchisee in France might interpret their agreement differently than one in Japan. A supplier in Brazil might fail to deliver on a fabric, leading to a cross-border contract dispute. Their global success inherently multiplies their legal risk. This dispute explosion is the terminal stage of the cycle. Chaos leads to cost, and cost leads to conflict. And each lawsuit, each arbitration, each regulatory penalty further reinforces the jurisdictional chaos, making the next deal even harder and more expensive. It's a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle. And if you are a global executive watching this, you are feeling the grind of these three gears right now. Now, understanding the machine is only half the battle. The critical step is learning how to break it. So let's make this real. Let's project this entire vicious cycle onto a company we all know. A company in the crosshairs of this very problem, Lululemon. Think about their trajectory from premium yoga wear to a global health and wellness ecosystem. Their ambitious international store expansion. Their acquisition of Mirror, the in-home fitness company. A deal that instantly threw them into the tangled webs of hardware regulation, digital content rights, and consumer data privacy across multiple continents. Lululemon is playing exactly the high-stakes, multi-jurisdictional game that Celestine describes. The question for them and the question for you is not how to avoid this system. You can't. The question is, how do you not just survive it, but master it? How do you turn this vicious cycle into a virtuous one? Celestine's research, in its academic conclusion, recommends strengthening legal harmonization efforts. That sounds like a task for diplomats and trade ministers. My strategic prescription is far more immediate and powerful. Don't wait for governments. Build your own harmonization. I call this predictive harmonization. For Lululemon, this means their legal and strategy team should not be reactive document reviewers. They must become strategic forecasters. Their mandate is to build dynamic, predictive models that map where apparel sustainability standards, digital fitness content laws, and data privacy regulations are converging. They need to ask, where is the Europe's Digital Service Act heading? How will California's privacy law influence Asian markets? Which trade bloc is emerging as the de facto standard setter for recycled materials? By identifying these regulatory trajectories, Lululemon can design its products, its marketing, and its contracts for the future regulatory landscape, not the current fragmented one. They can make a single globally compliant product line for their key markets, dramatically simplifying their supply chain. They can advocate for intelligent standards before they are set in stone. This is how you disarm Gear 1, jurisdictional chaos. You stop seeing a patchwork and start seeing a pattern. You stop being a victim of the system and start shaping it.
Next, we tackle the value-destroying monster of soaring transaction costs. Celestine explicitly calls for AI-driven compliance mechanisms. This isn't a vague suggestion. It is your most potent weapon to dismantle the second gear of the cycle. The implementation is not about buying a generic software license. It's about building a proprietary capability. For Lululemon, imagine an AI engine that is fed every single regulation, guidance notes, and case law related to product claims, data, and fitness content across their top 50 countries. A marketer in Vancouver wants to launch a new ad campaign for a shirt made with a proprietary fabric. Instead of a 6-week $1 million review process involving law firms in 5 countries, they plug the copy into the AI. In seconds, it returns claim approved in United States, Canada, United Kingdom, potentially misleading in European Union under Green Claims Directive, suggest alternative phrasing X, requires additional disclaimers in Australia, data collection clause compliance in 48 markets, violates new South Korean law. This turns your compliance function from the Department of No, a pure cost center, into the engine room of global speed and agility. It slashes those 19 million deal costs. It prevents the 50 million lawsuits. This is how you turn transaction cost economics on its head. You use technology to drive the costs of doing global business towards zero, making you faster, leaner, and more profitable than your rivals who are still trapped in the old way. This is the essence of competitive advantage in the 21st century. Finally, we come to the dispute explosion. You can't prevent all conflicts, but you can fundamentally change the battlefield. Celestine advises reinforcing alternative dispute resolution. My strategic take is this: make alternative dispute resolution not just an option, but a non-negotiable structural part of every single international relationship. For Lululemon, this means every franchise agreement, every supplier contract, every joint venture with a local partner must have a binding clause for mediation or arbitration before any party can step into a national courtroom. This is your proactive dispute shield. Why is this so powerful? First, it's faster and cheaper, immediately reducing the costs and impacts of Gear 3. Second, and more importantly, it pulls you out of jurisdictional chaos. Instead of fighting a legal war in a foreign court under unfamiliar rules, you are in a neutral, private forum with procedures you helped design. You are choosing the operating system for your disputes. This single policy makes Lululemon a lower risk, more predictable partner globally. Suppliers will prefer them because they know a misunderstanding won't lead to a devastating, years-long court case in a distant land. Franchisee will trust them more. This shield doesn't just protect you, it attracts better partners and builds more resilient supply chains. It breaks the cycle of conflict and replaces it with a system of managed resolution. So let's be clear. The future of global expansion doesn't belong to the biggest company or the one with the deepest pockets. The old playbook of throwing money and lawyers at the problem is what fools the very machine that is crushing you. The future belongs to the most adaptable, the most intelligent, those who see the chaos not as a barrier, but as a maze they can learn to navigate faster than anyone else. Mbonigaba Celestine's research has given us the blueprints, a precise diagnosis of the vicious cycle. The strategic playbook we have outlined today, predictive harmonization, AI accelerating compliance, and the proactive dispute shield, is your toolkit to break it. Your move now is to take this from a presentation to a plan. To use this not as an academic exercise, but as your strategic mandate. Stop feeding the machine, start breaking it, and build a company that isn't just global, but is globally resilient. Thank you for your time.